Ready to start your ESG journey? Get going today with Social Suite, and you could start reporting publicly in 30 days. With investor pressure mounting and regulations just around the corner, there's never been a better time to start your ESG reporting. Social Suite takes the complexity out of environmental, social, and governance reporting. Social Suite helps organizations to measure, monitor, and report on their progress with fast, simple, and affordable software. Create value through ESG in order to raise capital, improve brand and reputation, as well as mitigate risk. Social Suite has helped almost 100 micro to small cap companies report on ESG, with some starting their baseline report in under 60 minutes and reporting publicly within 30 days. ESG is a lot easier than you think, and you're probably already doing it. So take your sustainability reporting to the next level with measurable progress. Start your ESG journey today with Social Suite, an ESG software company for micro to small caps. Visit socialsuitehq.com. That's social, SUITEHQ.com to learn more. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast. My guests on the show today are Jerry Jacobs, CEO, and Nick Warrender, COO of LFTD Partners, Inc., a publicly traded company. The symbol is LIFD on the OTCQB. LFTD Partners, Inc., based in Jacksonville, Florida, is the parent corporation of LFTD, based in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which manufactures and sells hemp-derived and psychoactive products under its Herb Finest Flowers and Silly Shroom brands. LFTD Partners, Inc. also owns 4.99% of CBD-infused beverage and products maker Ablis Holding Company, and of craft distillers Ben's Distillery, Inc., also doing business as Crater Lake Spirits and Bend Spirits, Inc., all located in Bend, Oregon. I was made aware of LFTD Partners by Scott Weis from Semco Capital, and after doing a quick dive into the company, I invited them on to better understand how LFTD has gotten to where they are today. Now, you may hear me gush a little bit in this interview. That's not a recommendation, nor do I own any shares in LFTD Partners. But I've been interviewing cannabis companies now for 8 to 9 plus years. I was right there at the beginning interviewing psychedelics companies and have chatted with countless investors and experts that are active in the space. The majority of the companies, I would argue, and in my opinion, have or will fail in building a business in cannabis or psychedelics, especially in this nuclear winter negative sentiment environment for the space. And so when I come across a company like LFTD, I want to share a story that, for all intents and purposes, is not just surviving, but also thriving. That's not to say there hasn't been bumps in the road, which we discuss, as well as Lifted Made's brands, Silly Shroom and Herb Finest Flowers, managing regulatory risks, building out their distribution and sales networks, importance of brand IP, and running a psychedelics and or cannabis company through the current nuclear winter negative sentiment in the space. So with that, please enjoy my conversation with Jerry Jacobs and Nick Warrender from LFTD Partners, Inc. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Thanks, Bobby. Doing great.
Right. Awesome. No, I'm stoked to have you guys on here. I've done some of, I kind of joked around with you guys offline. I'm like, I've done some of the psychedelics Hemp 101 type podcasts over the years now, but the reason that it was really interesting to have you guys on the show is I think you're, to my knowledge, the first profitable psychedelics company that I've interviewed in this space. So one, congratulations just on that front. And secondly, I wanted to find out how you got there. So to start us off, Jerry, I'm going to throw this question at you first. What would you say is that one line that best describes LFTD Partners?
Yeah, I mean, in one sentence, I'd say LFTD Partners, Inc. has a wholly owned subsidiary, Lifted Made, that is a profitable manufacturer and distributor of Silly Shroom brand psychedelic gummies and Herb Cocoa Puffs and Cocoa Gummies brand hemp-derived cannabinoid-infused vapes, gummies, caviar flowers, and chocolates.
I can't, not to play around with you guys too much here, but I mean, you guys became a profitable company with a brand called Silly Shrooms. I mean, like that, we gotta dig deeper. So, Jerry, real quick, coming back to you first, and then Nick, I want to get your perspective as well. I want to take a look back at the LFTD Partners history. When was the company founded, and what was the original thesis for its founding?
Well, this public company was actually incorporated in 1986, long before I ever got involved. It went through some different iterations. It was an oil and gas company. It was involved in other businesses. But eventually the folks, they rolled up, shut down those businesses. Eventually they contacted me and asked me to take control of the business, which I did. And, I've been involved as a CEO of several public companies, including a company called Metal Management that I built into the biggest scrap metal recycler in North America. We took it from nothing to 900 million in sales, and our stock did extremely well. And a second company, an internet marketing company, Think Partnership, that I took from nothing to about 90 million in sales. Again, the stock did very well. But with this public company, I was really looking for an opportunity to steer it towards a business that we really think would have significant growth. And then I felt that there would be an opportunity for consolidation opportunities or roll-up opportunities, whatever you want to call it. And we spent a lot of time, to make a long story short, we spent a lot of time looking at the marijuana industry and looking at the CBD industry. Couldn't really find the right player to be our partner, kind of as an anchor tenant. It takes a very unusual combination of entrepreneurial skills and talents, as business skills, intelligence, to launch a business like this and to really emerge out of the hundreds of companies in the space. And, we had the good fortune to finally in 2018 to meet Nick Warner, who's with us here. And, frankly, after spending about 2 or 3 hours with Nick, I, looked at my president and said, we've finally found the right partner for this space, which is Nick and his company Lifted Made, that he'll tell you about. But, we, from a 30,000 foot level, we concluded that we didn't really want to get involved in growing marijuana or growing hemp. We felt that both of them were just simply commodities, not that difficult to grow, and that there would be tremendous surge in supply, which would crush the pricing, which has happened in both marijuana and hemp. But we really came to the conclusion that consumer products that were attractively branded and packaged and that really worked could be very sticky with consumers. And we felt that also the principal ingredient on the cannabinoid side of the house, the principal ingredient, we thought that as more and more hemp was planted in the country, that the price of the principal ingredient to these products, CBD isolate, CBD distillate, would go down, which it has. So we felt that, unlike most of the companies in the cannabis space that have been terribly, hurt over the last couple of years by oversupply of marijuana and hemp, for us, if we steered ourselves into the consumer product space where CBD isolate, CBD distillate was the principal ingredient, that the margins would actually increase or at least stay robust, and notwithstanding the fact that more and more hemp was being grown. So we had the good fortune to meet Nick just totally coincidentally at the time. I was living in Lake Forest, Illinois, just north of Chicago, and Nick's company was, literally 20 minutes away in Zion, Illinois. And after meeting Nick, I said, we finally found the right partner for our company.
Very good. Thank you for that full overview there, Jerry. So Nick, coming to you, you just heard Jerry's opening there and some of the thesis for LFTD Partners. When you first met Jerry, I mean, did you have a similar thought process of like, I would love to go into, this type of structure in order to grow out the Lifted Made brand? What was your thought process there?
Sure. So I think part of it comes back to our history. I started this company very small, $900, 10 by 10 room, from a personal need standpoint. So I was introduced to CBD. I was having some health issues. It was really expensive. It was really hard to find. And, it really helped me personally. And I knew this is something that I think can help a lot of people. And that's been our foundational standpoint from the get-go. And as we were starting to grow, this is 4 years later, being introduced to Jerry, his son, who's our CFO, I really felt, to get this to the next level, it's going to take a team. And to really get through these type of markets, a public company vehicle and legitimizing yourself, showing transparency and having the ability to consolidate needs to happen. It's something that is inevitably going to happen. So when that opportunity came, it's something that I jumped on top of because I'm a team player. I grew up playing basketball, and
Nice.
you're good at your position, but that you need, the big man in the post, and you need a shooting guard on the wing. So it was a natural fit. It was great chemistry right out of the gate, and we came to the table and said, look, we're both small, but together I think we can make something huge here. And, we're doing that. So it's been an awesome journey. It's put us in a position where we've had to be profitable because we started so small, and we're a real consumer ran business, which is a huge advantage in these industries. You have big executives that come from different industries and they try to put all their strategies in place. But when you really start with consumer-driven products that you actually use for yourself, I think people resonate with that. And, the proof is in the numbers. So it's really translated over these years to say, this is what we're making for ourselves, and we hope that you guys enjoy these products too.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that. Before we get into the products themselves, because I want to understand how they're differentiated maybe from some other, as you guys said earlier, the hundreds of companies that have been also trying to be in and survive this market. One thing you said that I really appreciate is that you wanted to be in a public vehicle in order to almost for your own checks and balances to stay transparent with your consumer audience. That's an interesting thought process that I don't think a lot of people think about. If you want to speak to that real quick, Nick, I thought that was interesting.
I appreciate that sentiment because it's an industry that is self-regulated, right? Yep. We don't have regulations, and we've always held ourselves to a higher standard. Testing, chain of custodies, traceability. And we wanted to take that a step further and say, like, we'll even put our numbers out there, right? Like whatever we can do to legitimize ourselves and let people know that we're not fly by night. This isn't a big money grab for us. We're here to pioneer an industry, and it's difficult, right? So it's, I think our chemistry down to like our DNA, right, is we're here for the right reasons. And when you do that, good things happen. I'm a firm believer in that. So we've tried to, we're old school Midwest guys. We want to put the work in, and this isn't for all the flair and the awards, but it's a journey to help people. It's a journey to pioneer an industry. And I think it's a huge opportunity, and we take that extremely seriously.
Very cool. All right, so let's dig into the products themselves. Real quick, Jerry, I'm going to go right back to Nick for this one. Tell us about a little bit about Silly Shroom as well as Herb Finest Flowers.
Yeah, so Herb is our main flagship brand, and that's been a vehicle for innovation in the hemp space, right? So because we're consumers, we've always prided ourselves in finding what's the next thing, like what's kind of the next hack for the hemp plant. We were early in CBD, CBG, CBN. Pre-pandemic, we started doing due diligence on Delta-8 THC. That was a compound that I was extremely interested in. It was something that I felt was really going to be a game changer. And when we got the green light, we were one of the first to markets with that product, and it really saved the hemp industry. We were the first company that did a compliant Delta-9 product. a live resin product using hydrocarbon extractions, things that you see in the medical marijuana space that hadn't translated over to hemp. So, we've put our blinders on and really just focused on, where do we see the industry headed rather than kind of chasing where, the trend is, right? So, segmenting that into silly shroom, it was really the same concept. I was super interested in the functional mushroom category. There wasn't a lot of products available, especially in our distribution channels. So, we looked at reishi and chaga and lion's mane and ashwagandha and kava and kanna and all these other compounds inside and outside of mushrooms, but kind of that run parallel to say, okay, cannabinoids are amazing, but I think there's other effects that we can dial in, other formulations we can dial in that, people will want to use throughout the day, at night, really to kind of it's biohacking to a degree, right? Like, how do I get the most out of my day? How do I feel the best that I possibly can? How do I stay sharp and gain clarity? So, we launched that brand knowing that psychedelics, knowing that mushrooms are going to be a huge topic. How do we get product into the market and start to get the consumer trust, right? So through that process, we were back to doing due diligence on a mushroom called Amanita muscaria. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's starting to get big now, but it's the little mushroom from Mario Brothers, the little red one with the white dots. So we've known about this.
Good timing with the movie coming out, right?
Yeah, we've known about this for a long time. And there's crazy history behind that. People drinking reindeer piss, because the decarbed this mushroom that was toxic, but when it's decarboxylated, it has amazing effects. So incredible history was something that never went mainstream at all, never really made it to the consumer markets. And it took us a year to get that product to market. We launched that in the fourth quarter, and the consumer demand was incredible, and it's because we've built trust within our brand and our company that we're going to put out good products. We're going to do our due diligence. We're not just going to rush to market with the money grab type mentality. And we use these products, so they're super, super exciting. Some of these compounds that are currently identifiable, like muscimol, there's a lot of research that's being done on them. There's research that goes back to the 60s and the 70s on it. And it's groundbreaking, in a lot of cases. I think people like these more than psilocybin microdosing. So
interesting.
Now we're seeing other peaks that are unidentified compounds and starting to look at what the effects of those are. So there's a lot to continue to roll out in the mushroom category, and we're super excited about it. But it does come down to branding. It comes down to that consumer confidence, and that's why we really decided to get in early, is to start building that.
Absolutely. Have a bunch more questions to follow down that line of thinking, but one real quick, coming back to Jerry, how did you get there? You mentioned how you got to this point where you have this, you have this customer more or less retention, and loyalty. How did you get to that point? Because again, there's so many different compounds and formulations and different types of, branded consumer products out there that have, one, whether it's CBD, cannabinoid, mushrooms, something like that. So how did you break through in that sense?
Well, I'm not going to take credit for the spectacular success of the lifted products. That really, I have to give full credit to Nick and his team. But, I approached looking at these products, looking at this industry and looking at product companies within the industry almost the way that, an analyst on Wall Street would look at them, which is, prioritizing characteristics and searching for companies that have those characteristics. And, in a new and emerging industry, I felt that one of the principal characteristics was just simply didn't really matter whether Jerry Jacobs felt that the products were attractive. It was how did consumers react to them, and how sticky was it with consumers? And, if it's like they say, if 10,000 coyotes feel this way, how, you're probably right. But, I spoke with, networking people within the industry who had been going to these trade shows, marijuana and CBD trade shows all over the country, and seeing hundreds of companies, and, piggybacked on due diligence that friends of mine had really spent that time and had identified a number of companies that they felt really had that elixir, that combination of very, very well received by consumers, stickiness, that were also, attractively branded and packaged, priced appropriately. And then, from our own due diligence standpoint, super important to have people involved that can function as part of a legitimate publicly traded company. I mean, there are just, in my opinion, a lot of people associated with marijuana and hemp that, I'm not sure that many of them really have the mentality and background to be part of, the industry leader. And it's a combination of integrity. It's a combination of commitment to be conservative, to have legitimate financials, and forward thinking. And then the most difficult thing is layering on top of it, even if you find somebody with that set of characteristics, which is very difficult, on top of that, having a leader of the organization who really is committed to profitability. Because we weren't approaching this from a private equity standpoint where we were going to throw $50 million into Lifted. It was, pretty much we'll put a certain amount in, and then we have to swim, not sink. And of course, the acid test for Nick Warrender and Lifted was that literally about 2 weeks after we closed our merger, the pandemic hit. And, my family, my father was a commodore of a yacht club in Wisconsin when I was growing up. And everybody in my family, I come from a very large family of 13 kids. We all raced sailboats growing up, and I still race sailboats. But, what I learned racing sailboats was that anybody can be a good skipper when it's a blue sky and little white clouds. You're going to find out whether your skipper is any good when it's blowing 35 miles an hour and black clouds are coming in on the lake. And that's what I felt was going to happen with the pandemic. I looked at my president and CFOs, my oldest son, William, we call him Jake. And I said, Jake, we're going to find out exactly how good a skipper Nick Warrender is, because the world has been turned upside down. And like anybody else, Lifted had a few months of difficulty when everything just shut down. The governor of Illinois came out with an executive order basically shutting down. I don't know why he allowed marijuana companies to continue in operation, but and alcohol companies, and not hemp. But, Lifted had a few difficult months, but, starting in July, August 2020, as distribution channels opened up, Lifted just exploded. And I really have to give credit to Nick and his team for not freaking out, not losing it, and having a mentality of we have to play through this and we have to be committed to profitability. As everybody listening to this channel that is focused on the cannabis space realizes, 99% of the companies in this space are determined to burn as much money as they can. The burn rate is almost like a badge of honor, but eventually you have to make profits if you want to stay in business. And God bless Lifted, because for the last about 9 quarters, they've grown dramatically, profitably, profitable for about 9-10 quarters in a row. And just last year they went from 18 million to in 2021 to, we haven't announced our 22 numbers, so far. They'll be announced in March, but dramatic growth. So we feel like we've got a very unique combination of people and skill sets.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, so Nick, coming to you on this same question, I mean, clearly, I mean, Jerry is totally right there, right? This basically launching or really going full bore in the middle of the pandemic. And maybe there was a tailwind from the mental health crisis. People are just looking for anything and everything that can maybe potentially help. But in your opinion, what was it that really helped break through and get you to where you're at today in terms of sales?
It's that old saying, it takes a decade to be an overnight success story, right? So it took a lot of years to break through into distribution. The distribution market is a huge barrier to entry, and it takes a lot of trust, and it takes constant knocking. So, I spent like 3 years studying distribution channels, going into these big warehouses. Couldn't sell to them, but I would still continue to go to see, what's selling, why is it selling, how's it branded, how's it marketed, things of that nature. And what I had found was that there was a huge hole from a branding perspective with products that were extremely masculine, right? So when we came out with Herb, we really focused on the feminine aspect of branding, bringing in a lot of pastel colors and a lot of other things. So besides being first to market, which is always a huge jump, it really came down to how we were branding to separate ourselves from the shelf, right? So there's only so much shelf space, and if you find your way on it, you really need to be able to separate yourself from your competitors. So, we spent a lot of years building those relationships, studying the market, and understanding, where there was a hole, and we filled that. And that was a huge reason why, to Jerry's point, we went from $1 million to 5 million. We did 31 million in 2021, and have continued to really ramp up. So now that we have a good foothold as a brand and we have that recognition, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's something that you can continue to build on. But it took a long period of time to finally kind of break through to get that shelf space, to build that trust with the distribution channels and the retailers. And, now we're in a position where, because that's done, they trust a new launch, right? So we launch a new product that goes right into distribution, right into the retailers. So that's a huge advantage. And trying to get in now, it's very difficult to take over that shelf space from, scaled brands that have the consumer trust and have the awareness and understand, how to price these products. There's a formula. And it's a rather difficult one to kind of hit it on all heads. So it's just a lot of years, man,
Absolutely. No, that's what I was looking for. So, in terms of patent, just IP, like, can you patent protect your formulations? Is that doable?
Unfortunately, we cannot. The only thing that we can patent is packaging.
Okay.
Which is something we're in the process of doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's really important IP. So, we focused on child-proof packaging. It's not a requirement, but it's something that we feel is important. And the design is massive. The appeal from the design perspective is huge. Again, separating yourself on the shelf, you come out with a great formula. It's easy for a lot of companies to copy that.
Right.
They can't copy the brand, right? So it's really brand IP that is the most important thing, and it is speed to market. So we're able to get new products to market rather quickly. There are some things that have taken a year, 2 years to bring to market, but nonetheless, we were still able to get to market first because it wasn't on anybody's radars. So we've got a good formula that's kind of a plug and play model now, where we can get product from concept to market, in a matter of weeks, if not a couple months. So that's an important thing as well, as speed to market.
So one more question on the products themselves. You talked earlier about how there isn't, and I don't know this for a fact or not, because I don't follow the space as closely as you guys do. But in terms of regulation and putting the formulations together, how does that all work together, especially for folks that may not be as familiar with, psychoactive ingredients in a consumer product? What does this mean? So, Nick, can you give me kind of a little bit of a background and how to understand that?
Sure. So we're not regulated currently, but it's important to know that the self-regulations that the industry has put in place are above and beyond, and in some instances, medical marijuana itself, right? So you're talking full testing of all components, finished component testing, full panel testing, chain of custody, full traceability, ISO grade labs from a production standpoint for cleanliness. I mean, we have a full-blown ERP system that tracks all of these things, child-proof packaging. So batch coding, there's a lot of things that we've done as an industry, and especially as a company from a self-regulatory standpoint, that we feel is a good structure to put in place for future regulations. We're all for that, as long as, they're really tailored around consumer protection. So, as an industry, we've done a great job. As a company, I think we've even taken it a step further. But and like I said previously, is we're a consumer ran business, right? So we actually use these products, and that's important to know. I'm not going to speak on any other company. I don't throw rocks at anybody else, but we are truly consumer ran business. So I'm not going to put something out in the market that I'm not going to put in my own body. And that's a good foundation to build off of. If we're able to make products that help us personally, I was always a firm believer that other people appreciate that, and that there's a trust that's built there.
Very good. All right. So Jerry, coming back to you, you guys public company now for a little bit, just about 3 years, maybe two and change, and you've done a few, I think you've gone out there, you've done a couple interviews, done a couple things here and there, but even after investors maybe do an interview with you or learn a little bit more about the company, what are some of the frequently asked questions that you still get, or that investors still get confused when thinking about LFTD?
Well, it's a very interesting dialogue for our company with potential investors and Wall Street, because there has been such a mammoth bloodbath in the marijuana industry. I saw an article in Benzinga a month and a half ago, which some analysts calculated that about $31 billion has been lost in the marijuana industry, and just bloodbath. I mean, across the board, big companies, middle-sized companies, small companies, and it's continuing. I mean, conditions are just terrible in the marijuana space. Curaleaf just announced that they're exiting California and Colorado and Oregon. The drumbeat of bad news about the illicit, too much supply, the illegal market, lack of access to normal banking services, Section 280E of the tax code. All these reasons have soured the investment community on quote unquote the cannabis space. So the biggest difficulty that we've had is that we're kind of walking in and saying, well, take a look at us, because we're actually growing and consistently profitable, and there's just so much negative sentiment about the space that's a big issue. It's almost like the entire industry has been redlined, and unless you're trying to, raise capital for just simply buying some real estate, it's very difficult. The Wall Street is very smart people. They smell blood in the water, and if they're going to lend or invest at all, it's got to be on very draconian terms. I'm sure that you've seen the tremendously high interest rates, warrant coverages. It's a very difficult environment. So even if a company, even if a potential investor is willing to look at our space, look past all the carnage in our space to look at our company, we still get asked a lot about the regulatory framework for what we're doing. I mean, what we're doing is legal. There's a bill that's typically referred to as the Farm Bill, and the most recent version of the Farm Bill, legalized hemp-derived products. But many sophisticated investors, even if they look at the space and say, okay, I guess maybe you're the one little unicorn that's profitable, is your little unicorn going to get guillotined if some new federal law passes, new federal regulation passes? We don't think that that's going to happen. This is a gigantic industry. So many millions of consumers around the country have voted that they need these products, want these products for all sorts of reasons that the FDA does not want you to talk about. So people can't, honestly explain all the reasons why consumers love these products. But, this is the difficulty that we're facing.
Yeah, Jerry, I literally, you hit on my exact next sentence. I did an interview with Aaron Edelheit from Mindset Value, I hope I'm saying his newsletter right. But we were talking about how, I think we put out that interview in September or something last year, and it was just, basically the bloodbath for anything touching cannabis, psychedelics in the last year. And you actually hit on my next question, is basically how you've been trying to communicate the story despite the overall negative sentiment, and without any there was some news that came out. We're recording this on a Tuesday, January 31st. There was some news that came out yesterday about California lifting some bans on interstate commerce, but that's mostly has to do with cannabis. You're dealing with legal product, right? Like your legal derived product. So despite the fact, it just basically the whole point is that everything, all the news and everything around cannabis psychedelics tends to drip down to you guys, despite the fact that you're not directly dealing with flower or directly dealing with actual psychoactive mushrooms. So I get it, man. It's a tough slog.
For us,
tough story to tell.
For us, the pathway is actually, it's clarifying for us over the last couple months, which is that, we have now gotten to the point where there's been enough profitable quarters stacked on top of each other that we've actually started to see some nice upticking in our stock price and in our volume. But the pathway for us has got to be to, get onto NASDAQ. Because frankly, even as interest has risen significantly over the last few months in our stock, we're still sitting on the over-the-counter OTC QB, and many funds and so forth just aren't going to touch stocks that are on the OTC. I'm not throwing a rock at us or other fine companies on the OTC, but many of these funds, they just want to buy stocks that are listed on a major exchange. So the good news for us, very significant for us, was that within the last 6 months, NASDAQ accepted another publicly traded company on their exchange that involves selling Delta-8 products. That to us was a very significant litmus test. Recently, within the last month, our stock the bid on our stock has gone over $4. So now for us, it's just a question of getting enough shareholders to meet the shareholder listing requirements. But as soon as we're able to meet the listing requirements in terms of additional shareholders, I am very confident that our board will ask us to apply for the listing on NASDAQ. And I think that if and when we are able to get onto NASDAQ, if we get enough when we get enough shareholders, I think that alone is going to cause a very dramatic increase in investor interest in our stock, volume in our stock. I can't guarantee that, but that's what we expect, and our financial friends in the financial community are very strongly believing.
The tough part probably, and this, but it sounds like you were probably strategic when you were originally constructing the public company in terms of shares outstanding and whatnot. There's not a lot in the float, right? So it's also it's sometimes a little difficult to get that shareholder count up as well, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, it's a good news, bad news situation. When you
Right.
look at when you look at the public companies in the cannabis space, I mean, the
Oh, yeah.
tremendous number of them have 150 million, 250 million, three hundred
Mhm.
fifty million shares outstanding. We only have 14 million shares
Yeah.
outstanding. We have a very, very small number of shares outstanding. We're very nicely profitable, and not on some sort of adjusted EBITDA basis, on actual GAAP EPS. But the good news is, small number of shares outstanding, very nice earnings per share that's been growing year over year dramatically. But the bad news is that as a result, we only have a few hundred shareholders, and so we do need a few more to qualify for allow us to apply to NASDAQ. But we're hoping, and there's been some developments, not just the growth in the company. But Nick, do you mind discussing discussing this Cali Suites collaboration? Because I think that some of the things that Lifted has done and Nick has done is really kind of setting the stage for more shareholders to come into our company.
Nick,
Sure.
fire away, man. Let's go. Jerry's taking over my job. I'm sorry. I'll shut up. I'm gonna hang out back here.
Yeah, so we just locked on a deal with a company called Cali Suites. The CEO is a woman named Flo Mursky, who's just a phenomenal entrepreneur. She's the most connected person I've ever met in my life when it comes to A-list celebrities, rappers, influencers. Our big goal with that is not only to bring awesome products to market with her, but really get mainstream exposure. We've functioned as a counterculture industry for a long time with massive consumers behind it, but this really lack of mainstream awareness, right? I mean, you look at how long it took just for vapor products to really get mainstream. Hemp-derived products, as much as we know about it and the saturation of it, there's still so many people that have no idea about these type of products, and same with mushrooms and functional mushrooms and these blends that are coming to market. So, this deal is exciting it's a twofer, right? It's really innovative, cool new products, but a type of marketing that you almost can't pay for, that, she's bringing to the table. And like, I just can't speak high enough of Flo and what her skill set and abilities are. And, that's a great first quarter launch for us. And we think, I'm so confident that push is going to be huge to get, just more eyeballs on this industry of people that are unaware of these products.
So, things are going well, right? It's been, we've been talking about the company's profitable, all this stuff, the deal with Cali Suites. But, let's play a little devil's advocate, and Jerry did mention about how, like, hey, this farm bill is kind of hanging out there. That could potentially be a downside risk. In your opinion, what else would you say are some of the company's downside risks that you'd want either your current shareholders or potential shareholders to really be aware of when thinking about LFTD? Nick, you want to take it away, or Jerry?
Well, like I said, I feel the regulatory risk would be number one. Number two would be the fact that we're not yet on an exchange. I think getting on NASDAQ would significantly help that. I think that I think from my standpoint, one of the challenges, I'm not going to say it's a problem, but if you're asking me what would I say are challenges facing our company, it's that it's very difficult, like I said, to find additional players to join us, because we'd like to grow not just organically, but we'd like to also grow through accretive, synergistic acquisitions. And by synergy, I don't mean acquiring companies and then firing half of their workforce. Okay, our goal is not. In my career, I've done a lot of acquisitions in the various public companies that I've run, and I've never done an acquisition with the intent that the acquisition would justify itself by firing people. Okay, we only try to focus on companies that are really well run, that are profitable, and that are growing, and that you hope that by bringing them into the business with us, that they will grow even faster, and that you have a 1 + 1 = way more than 2. So I'd say for myself, the biggest challenge outside regulations and getting on an exchange is identifying, good candidates that we feel have characteristics, leadership, DNA, profitability that can even remotely come close to what Nick and Lifted are doing. I'm not trying to sound arrogant or anything, but Lifted has set a very, very high standard for us. And we're very conservative people when it comes to due diligence and acquisitions. But that's the biggest challenge outside Lifted's business, other than regulation and getting on an exchange, in my view.
Absolutely. Well, you got to be disciplined when it comes to capital allocation in that sense, right? Especially in this space when, there's been so many players that have tried. We're about rounding the bend here. So my final question to close this out here, and Nick, I'm going to come to you on this one. In your opinion, where do you see the company in 3 to 5 years? And what would you say are the inflection points to get you there?
I think we have a foundation to be the biggest player in the space, especially from a profitability standpoint. I think our character is a driving force and a gravity pull that's bringing a lot of great deals together. I think that we're a great bridge for the marijuana industry because of how we operate. So I think that you're going to see this coming together of good people and good players that, as entrepreneurs, all have their own talents. The inflection point for that is just sticking to the plan. Great things take time and consistency and hard work. It's not rocket science, but it takes those days in and days out of really kind of pushing forward the market. We don't focus on the things we can't control, but we know that there's so much more that's still to come from this industry. So, we're taking our time to do the right deals. And to Jerry's point, we're not going to just do a deal to do a deal, to have a new announcement, right? We have a lot of great things going on in the background. And we believe if we just continue to come with a sound moral foundation, that these deals are going to get done. We're going to be in a position where the capital markets trust us as a good vehicle. And, the best for us is still yet to come. So we've done amazing things coming out of a pandemic. We've stuck together as a team. We didn't blow up. And, that same DNA is, I think, what's going to push us forward. And we've always looked at this as a marathon comprised of sprints, right? So we're looking at this as a long-term play, not just a short-term game. So I think our mentality is just different, and who we are as people, I think, is really the driving force to our success. So we just keep the blinders on and stick to the plan. Whatever happens, we've always been in a position to pivot properly. And, this is a industry where you're betting on the jockeys, right? So irregardless of all the noise and all the crazy things that are going on, our goal is to continue to prove that we're good jockeys, we're good stewards of money. We take this very seriously. And irregardless of what happens, we're the guys to figure it out.
Nice. That's a great place to end it. Jerry, Nick, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can our audience go and find more information on LFTD Partners?
Well, for the parent company, the public company, if you could go to LFTDpartners.com. And for information about Lifted and all of its amazing products, it would be liftedmade.com.
Very good. Jerry, Nick, again, thank you very much for joining me today. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, Bob.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast.